Ever since I started building furniture, I've had the long-term goal of furnishing my entire house with my own pieces. I'm almost there on the first floor of my house, but one of the last two pieces of furniture I need to build is the one you see as soon as you walk in the door. So it needs to be something with a little style to it, something that makes a statement.
So I'm going to attempt to get as much of this project I can out of this one slab that I have here. I've got two of these actually, but I want to save the other one for another project. I know for sure I'll be able to get the top, which is why I want to use this. I want to have a live edge on it. And I'll be able to get the legs and possibly some of the rails, so we'll see.
As it turns out, I was able to get everything from this one slab except for the bottom shelf. My priority was the top and legs because I knew I could get the top and then four really straight grained legs out of it. But I was also able to get all four top rails and all four bottom rails and still have a little bit left over. Once I had everything rough cut to size, I got it all milled down, and this is where it becomes pretty clear why I chose this slab for this table. Here you can really see the straight grain of those legs. This one piece will give me two legs that all have perfectly straight grain, and I've got another piece just like it. There were two nail holes in this slab that I had to work around, but I was able to fit all the pieces and be able to eliminate those when I made my cuts. All of the rails had to be resawn down, but it worked out well because I ended up with a couple of book matches that just, the grain in this slab was just perfect for what I was looking for. And there you have it. There's all of my pieces after milling except for the bottom shelf. The grain on all these legs was as straight as you could ever hope for, but that didn't stop me from spending probably an absurd amount of time trying different layouts before I finally settled on the position and orientation for each one. Once I had that figured out, I marked all their positions on the top of the legs.
So this time I actually am working with a plan. Unlike my desk, I've got everything measured out and drawn out. First thing I need to do is mark out all the mortises on the legs. There's two per leg. So the way I'm running the rails, there is a rail on the front, rear of the top, and then the inside or left and right of the bottom. Well, now I'm going to actually go out and lay out the joinery.
I decided to use integral mortise and tenons on this project rather than dominoes or floating tenons. It's been a while since I built anything this way, and I wanted to knock the rust off, so to speak. I'm using a router to mortise out all of the legs, which meant I needed to gang them together to have enough support area for the router. I like to plunge full depth at the start and stop of the mortise, and then work down a 1/4 inch at a time until the mortise is fully cut. That full depth plunge makes it easy to know where to stop. This method takes a lot longer than using my mortise or a domino, but I'm building this for the enjoyment of the process as much as I am for the finished piece of furniture. Whenever I cut tapers on legs, it always takes me a minute to wrap my brain around the order to cut the tapers so that I can always have a good reference edge and an edge against the jig. Here you can see on this jig, that means starting with the second cut down and rotating clockwise after the first cut. But next time, I'm sure I'll have to pause to remember this again. With the legs cut and mortised out, I can turn my attention to the rails. The top and bottom rails are all different sizes, so it's important to have everything marked out where I wanted them. I made sure to keep the best looking grain for the more visible rails. Not that any of the grain was bad looking, just not as straight as what I reserved for those real showpieces. I also made sure to cut a couple extra pieces that I can use to test joinery as I fit everything later on.
There we go.
Once I had the fit I wanted on the tenons, I could round them over to fit in the rounded mortises in the legs. About that time, Ruck came in to let me know that he had saved me from being murdered by the people walking on the sidewalk outside, so of course I had to take a minute to thank him for that. There would be 2 sets of through mortises on this table. Here you can see I'm marking out the 2 bottom side rails. There will also be 2 very visible through mortises in the top, front, and back rails. And I'm starting with the sides so that I can be nice and warmed up by the time I get to the 2 front mortises. I'm kind of going in the order of what you might notice if you were to walk in my front door from least likely to most likely. I removed most of the waste of the drill press, but everything after that I'll do by hand with chisels. used the dado stack to make the through tenons, like I did on the others, but in retrospect, I realized that there was a better way to do this. My dad left me a bunch of his tools, and included in them was this tenoning jig. I forgot I even had it, and I haven't cleaned it up yet, but in hindsight, it would have left a much cleaner tenon that would have been better for something as visible as these. And instead, I was left cleaning up the dado marks with a hand plane, trying to get the right fit that I could have dialed in a little bit better on that tenoning jig. Either way, I eventually got the fit I wanted, although you'll see later there were a couple gaps that I had to take care of after glue up. The top had a little bit of a wobble to it, so before jointing, I used a hand plane to clean up the two high spots and give it a little bit of a flatter surface to start with.
I was really hoping that I wouldn't have to use any epoxy on this one, but this one crack that I need to fill. It's small, it's on the underside, but it does come out onto the live edge, so I'm going to do my best to just get some clear epoxy in there and see what it does.
The top will be connected to the top rails with sliding dovetails. I'm starting with the dovetail cuts on the top by first using a straight bit to remove some of the waste before switching out to the dovetail bit and making the final cuts. Once I had the slot cut, I could use the depth of those to set the height on the router table for cutting the dovetails in the rail. This is where it really helped to have the offcuts from those rails. It took several rounds of testing, adjusting, recutting, testing again before I had the fit I was looking for on the test pieces, and only then did I cut my actual rails.
There we go.
Since most of the table came from one slab, the color match on every piece was perfect. Finding the right stock for the bottom shelf with a good color match meant playing a game of walnut Jenga, trying to pull the pieces I needed without the whole pile falling on me. After the shelf was glued up, I ran one side through the jointer and then took it to the table saw to cut it to its final width. That left it just narrow enough that it could fit through my planer so that I could get the top and bottom cleaned up and get it to its final thickness. I'm not sure how it ended up there, but this slab came with this very faint saw mark on the live edge that I had to clean up. I sanded what I could, but I ended up using a spoke shave to get rid of most of it. With this being a live edge, it blended in perfectly, so that was no issue. I also like to sand everything once with 80 grit before I apply any of my edge treatments. Then I'll do my final sanding after that. This way I don't run the risk of sanding away anything noticeable when I do something as subtle as an 1/8 inch round over. Well, that's it for this one, and that leaves me with just one more piece of furniture for my formal dining room before every piece of wooden furniture on my first floor was built by me. I have plans for that, but it'll still be a little while before I get to it. For now, thank you for watching. I hope to see you on the next build. I'll also be posting the plans for this build for free on my website if you want to check that out.